As an aviation enthusiast, there's certain aircraft that have been on my bucket list to try, such as the McDonnell Douglas MD-80 series jets. But in Europe, they're simply hard to come by. So I've come all the way to Toronto in Canada to experience it for myself as I fly from here in Toronto down to Atlanta in the USA with Delta Airlines. Before we get on board,
hello,
it's Robin from Vlogs. Welcome to Blake Edgington Airborne.
Let's get going.
Welcome to Terminal 3 here at Toronto Pearson International, which has a very bright and well laid out check-in area. Now, I was rather excited to meet my good friend and fellow YouTuber Robin when I arrived, and I didn't do much filming, so let's just skip ahead and explore airside. Flights from Toronto to the USA benefit from customs pre-clearance, which speeds up the arrival process in the States, and once the formalities had been taken care of, I had plenty of time to grab a bite to eat before taking a look around. My flight departed from the A gate, which isn't the largest of areas, but it was clean, bright and well laid out, with a small selection of restaurants and shops available. I was also pleased that PowerPoints were scattered throughout the terminal, which is almost essential for today's modern traveller.
So that's a very quick trip through Toronto Airport, and I have to say I'm very impressed. I do like this terminal, at least the parts of it I've seen myself overall. But of course I'm here for a flight, so let's get on board the MD-88 and head to Atlanta.
Okay, so two things. Firstly, no, running into Robin in Toronto was no coincidence. I'm a really big fan of his channel Vlogs, and we arranged to travel on this flight together. He even really kindly allowed me to have the window seat. I'll make sure to put a link to Robin's channel in the description, where as well as his other great videos, he will also be sharing his experience of this flight. Secondly, how awesome is the engine sound on this MD-88? Despite the darkness, my first journey on this aircraft is off to a brilliant start, so let's see what the rest of the flight has to offer. But before I show you around the aircraft, as always, let's take a look at the pricing. Delta offers several direct and connecting flights from Toronto to Atlanta daily, with fares varying greatly depending on date, time and class of travel. My main cabin booking from Toronto to Atlanta and onward to Miami included seat selection and cost $204, which I think was pretty good value. As with my flight on Delta's A321, the cabin lights were left switched off for the duration of my flight, which made it even more impressive that the hard-working crew managed to carry out a full service in darkness. When flying Delta, all passengers receive a complimentary drink and light snack, which I very much appreciated, and I chose an apple juice and one of my new favourite snacks, Biscoff cookies. If you're feeling particularly hungry, then depending on the route and time of day, additional items are available to buy on board too. Eventually the sun began to rise outside, meaning we had some light in the cabin and I could finally take a look around. The MD-88 seats up to 149 passengers in a 3-2 layout, meaning that only one passenger per row suffers the dreaded middle seat. Obviously, given the age of this aircraft, the cabin isn't what you call modern, but it's very comfortable and has the essentials that you need for a short flight, such as reading lights and cool air vents which can be found above each row. Storage for your bags can be found in the overhead lockers, although they aren't the biggest, which is no surprise given the size of the aircraft. Toilets are found at both the front and rear of the plane, and again you could see the age of the aircraft in the design here, but they were clean and tidy and no smaller than the ones that you'll find on the latest A320neos, for example.
So we're about halfway through the flight now. Let's check out the seat that you could expect if you flew on board the Delta MD-88.
As part of my main cabin fare, seat selection was included with my ticket, and being the plane geek that I am, I chose a seat that gave me a great view of both the wing and the engine, which, believe me, doesn't get old. Anyway, the seat, and on board the MD-88 is a proper old school airplane seat that may not have the latest technology, but it's most of all incredibly comfortable. And you can see straight away that the seat is a simple design and certainly not one of those modern slimline styles. The tray table is enormous, but it is missing one of my favourite features, a drinks holder, which true may not be particularly useful, but I do like them. There also isn't any adjustment to this table, but the sheer size of it means that adjustment really isn't necessary anyway. Storage is quite good on the MD-88 and the seat pocket is separated into two parts. At the rear is Delta's literature, including the safety cards, information on the Wi-Fi and also the Sky in-flight magazine, and the front section offers room to keep your in-flight essentials close to hand. I mentioned that this seat is comfortable and you can see here the main reason why. The legroom is very generous and I had lots of space to stretch out on this really enjoyable trip. Now you'd be forgiven for thinking that because of how old the MD-88 is, that the only entertainment on board is Delta's in-flight magazine, which by the way is pretty good and not only features Delta's incredibly vast route network but also a crossword puzzle to pass the time. As well as this though, the MD-88, like Delta's newer jets, is fitted with Wi-Fi. There are various packages available to purchase at reasonable rates, and I was delighted that Delta provide messaging free of charge, which worked brilliantly. Not only is messaging free, but Delta also offer a complimentary streaming service so that you can enjoy the entertainment in flight, including a selection of films and TV shows. And while on the subject of entertainment, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more flight experiences, as well as following me on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, where I'll share updates on my travels as they happen and the latest YouTube uploads.
So you may have noticed a bit of a continuity issue in this video with the old hat change, but that's thanks to this guy Robin from Vlogs who's bought me a hat. So I love it, thank you very much. But as exciting as that is, the captain has announced we'll be arriving in Atlanta soon, so make sure to stick around to the end of the video. I'll tell you what I think not only about the hat, but about the flight on the MD-88 as well. So here we are in Atlanta after that flight with Delta. If you're new here, this is where I'll share with you my final thoughts and feelings on today's experience, kicking things off in Toronto. And I genuinely did enjoy my time in Toronto Airport. It was a little bit early, so the airport was just starting to come to life, but there was a decent selection of shops and restaurants at the A gates that I saw today, really nice. It was my first time trying US pre-clearance, and it was a much less painful process than I ever anticipated. Really easy to go through, nice and simple, and all the staff I interacted were very friendly. And then we come to the highlight of today's flight, and that's the fact that I was looking to try the MD-88, and it didn't disappoint. Now, it's an older aircraft, so it doesn't have the modern touches many jets nowadays do, but it was really enjoyable. Also very comfortable. I found the seats have really good legroom and was nicely padded. I will say about the seat though that the back support was a little bit low for me, and I could see on a longer flight it might be a little bit uncomfortable not having a headrest there. The cabin crew that I interacted with today as well were absolutely fantastic, really friendly, and they genuinely seemed to be enjoying their job, which is always nice to see. And the service they did perform, well, it's always nice to have a complimentary snack and drink on board any flight, something I'm not particularly used to with many of my low fares flights in Europe, and that Biscoff was really good. I'll certainly look to try one of those again in future. Now, there were a couple of things that did get my attention on this flight though, and one of those is the fact that the cabin was kept in darkness for the entire journey. This was announced before takeoff, but I kind of didn't think it'd be quite so literal. All of the lights are off in the cabin. In my experience on these early morning flights, at least in Europe, some lights are illuminated to allow the crew to work and passengers to see, but that wasn't the case here. Just a little bit odd for me, and it did seem strange watching the cabin perform their duties in pretty much pitch darkness. But overall, as I say, this was a great trip today, and I do hope to be able to try the MD-88 again in future, and of course to fly Delta again as well. As far as impressions go, they did leave a very good one. I hope you've enjoyed today's trip. If you have, please do leave me some feedback in the comment section below, good or bad, and a thumbs up. And of course, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to this channel for much more future aviation related content. And as always, take care.